God, Malik, you still look homeless. Vanessa Whitmore said it with a smile soft enough for a dinner table and sharp enough to cut through every sound in the restaurant. The forks stopped first. Then the quiet spread. Across the white tablecloths. Across the candlelight. Across the small Italian place on Michigan Avenue where people paid $40 for pasta and pretended not to listen. Malik Grayson did not move. His hand stayed beside his daughter's plate, folding her napkin into a neat little square because Zuri liked things even when the world was not. She sat beside him in her blue school dress, the one with the tiny silver stars on the collar, her braids tied with white ribbons, her eyes lowered toward the untouched ravioli in front of her. 8 years old, too young to understand divorce papers, old enough to understand shame. Vanessa stood 3 feet away in a cream coat that probably cost more than Malik's old pickup. Her diamond bracelet caught the candlelight every time she moved her wrist. Beside her, Derek Hale gave a small laugh, the kind men use when they want cruelty to sound expensive. I almost did not recognize you, Vanessa added, looking Malik over from his worn brown jacket to the polished but aging shoes beneath the table. Then again, some things never change. Malik lifted his eyes. Slowly, not because he was afraid, because he had learned a long time ago that a man did not have to rush just because someone threw fire at his feet. Vanessa, he said, calm as rain on glass. No anger, no surprise, just her name, placed carefully in the air. That made her smile tighten. She had expected defense, maybe embarrassment, maybe the old Malik, the one who used to explain himself until his voice went tired. But that man had been buried somewhere between eviction notices, late-night bus rides, and a little girl falling asleep against his shoulder while he filled out loan forms at 2 in the morning. Zuri's fingers found the edge of his sleeve. Small, trembling. Malik felt it without looking down. That hurt more than the insult. Not the word homeless. He had survived worse words than that. What hurt was knowing his daughter had heard it from her. Mother. Daddy, Zuri whispered, barely moving her lips. Can we go? Malik turned toward her then, and the whole restaurant faded behind her face. He saw the shine in her eyes, the way she tried to be brave because she thought bravery was something children owed tired parents. He took her hand beneath the table and pressed her knuckles once. No, baby, he said softly. We came to celebrate your essay. We are going to finish what we started. Vanessa gave a quiet scoff. Still teaching her pride before practicality? Malik looked back at her. I am teaching her not to carry words that do not belong to her. The sentence landed gently, but it landed. Even Derek stopped smiling for half a second. At a corner table near the window, Claire Ashford heard every word. She had not meant to listen. She had come alone, as she often did after board meetings, still wearing a charcoal suit and the expression of a woman who had spent the day making men twice her age sit straighter. Her phone kept lighting beside her wine glass. Investors, lawyers, people who needed decisions, signatures, power. But for the first time all evening, Claire did not reach for it. She watched the man in the worn jacket smooth his daughter's napkin, steady his own breath, and refuse to turn pain into performance. Most men Claire knew would have used a room like this as a stage. They would have raised their voices, dropped a title, reached for money like a weapon. Malik Grayson did none of that. He simply sat there with his back straight, his daughter's hand in his, and a kind of quiet that made the insult look smaller than the woman who had spoken it. The waitress, nervous from the tension, came by with a pitcher and accidentally splashed a little water near Zuri's plate. I am so sorry, she said, cheeks flushing red. Malik reached for a clean napkin before she could panic. It is all right, he said. Mistakes do not make you small. Claire's fingers froze around the stem of her glass. She did not know his name yet. She did not know that before the week was over, the same man would walk into her tower and change the future of her company. She only knew this. Some people entered a room demanding to be seen. Others sat quietly in the corner and somehow made the whole room reveal itself. Claire Ashford watched Malik Grayson leave the restaurant without making the room pay for what it had done to him. That was what stayed with her. Not Vanessa's voice. Not Derek's polished little laugh. Not even the way the other diners lowered their eyes once the moment became too uncomfortable to own. It was Malik's restraint. The kind that did not look weak. The kind that looked practiced. He helped Zuri into her small winter coat, buttoned the top button beneath her chin, and checked the pocket where she kept the folded certificate from school. Then he left enough cash on the table to cover the meal and the tip, even though they had barely touched the food. The waitress tried to thank him, but he only gave her a small nod, as if kindness was not something that needed applause. Outside, the February air came hard off the lake, sharp enough to turn every breath white. Zuri walked close to him along the sidewalk, her shoulder brushing his coat with every step. For half a block, neither of them spoke. The city moved around them in bright fragments. Taxi lights, steam from a street grate, a man selling roasted nuts from a silver cart. Somewhere in the distance, a siren rose and faded like a memory no one wanted to keep. Malik kept his pace slow so Zuri would not have to hurry in her dress shoes. He had learned that children sometimes needed silence more than answers. At the corner, she finally looked up at him. "Are we poor, Daddy?" The question was small. That made it heavier. Malik stopped beneath the green glow of a streetlight. He crouched in front of her, careful not to let the cold concrete touch his knee for too long. "We have had poor days," he said. "That is not the same as being poor people." Zuri studied him, trying to understand the difference. "Then why did Mom say that?" Malik looked past her for a second, toward the restaurant window where Vanessa was still laughing at something Derek had said. The glass made her look far away, like a life he had once survived. "Because some people only know how to measure a person by what they can see," he said. "A coat, a car, a house, a bill." He tapped lightly over Zuri's heart with 2 fingers. "But the most important parts of you do not make noise." Zuri's lip trembled. She fought it. He saw that too. "You do not have to be tough right now, baby." That was all it took. She stepped into him, pressing her face against his shoulder, and Malik held her there on the sidewalk while strangers passed around them. He did not tell her not to cry. He did not tell her it was fine. It was not fine. A mother's words could leave fingerprints no photograph would ever catch. Across the street, Claire had followed only far enough to wait for her car. Her driver stood beside a black sedan with the rear door open, but she had not gotten in. She saw Malik kneel. She saw the child fold into him. She saw no performance, no speech, no grand lesson. Just a father making himself smaller so his daughter could feel safe. Claire looked down at her phone as it buzzed again. 3 missed calls from Ashford Capital's legal team. 2 messages from her chief operating officer. 1 reminder for a morning acquisition review involving Meridian Renewal Group, a quiet investment firm no one seemed able to fully read. She should have been thinking about debt structures, land parcels, and shareholder exposure. Instead, she was thinking about a man in a worn jacket who had told a waitress that mistakes did not make her small. Her driver cleared his throat gently. "Miss Ashford." Claire blinked, then slipped into the back seat. The leather was warm. The city outside turned soft behind tinted glass. Still, as the car pulled away, she looked back once. Malik and Zuri were walking toward an old pickup parked under a broken meter. He opened the passenger door for his daughter, tucked her essay certificate safely inside her backpack, then stood alone for a moment with one hand on the roof of the truck. He lowered his head, not in defeat, in prayer maybe, or memory. Claire could not tell, but something about that small pause followed her all the way home. Long after the skyline rose around her apartment in clean, expensive lines, long after she kicked off her heels and ignored another glass of wine, she heard his voice. Again, mistakes do not make you small. And for reasons she was not ready to name, Claire Ashford wondered how many people she had made feel small simply because she had never slowed down long enough to see them. Morning came without mercy. By 7:15, Chicago had turned the color of steel, and Malik Grayson was already 3 hours into his day. He had packed Zuri's lunch, signed her reading log, found the missing left glove under the couch, and listened while she practiced the last paragraph of her essay in the kitchen. She read slowly at first, then stronger, her voice filling their small apartment above the laundromat on South Wabash. Malik stood at the stove, turning oatmeal with one hand and tying his work boots with the other. There was no rush in him, even when the clock argued otherwise. He had learned that panic never made a morning kinder. Zuri watched him over the edge of her paper. "Daddy, do you have a big meeting today?" He looked up. "What makes you ask that?" She pointed at the ironed white shirt hanging from the cabinet handle. Malik smiled faintly. "I have a grown-up meeting." "Is it important?" "Important enough to wear the shirt without the coffee stain." That made her laugh, and the sound loosened something in his chest. Last night had left a shadow behind her eyes. But children were merciful in ways adults forgot how to be. They could still laugh while healing. By 8:20, he walked her to the elementary school entrance, holding her backpack in one hand and his old leather folder in the other. The folder looked plain. Scuffed corners. A tired brass clasp. Inside it sat documents worth more than every luxury car parked outside the restaurant the night before. Zuri hugged him twice before going in. The second hug was tighter. "You are not what she said," she whispered. Malik closed his eyes for half a breath. "Neither are you, baby." He watched until the school doors swallowed her into noise and fluorescent light. Only then did his face change. Not hard. Focused. He walked back to his pickup, changed into the white shirt behind the tinted window, buttoned his cuffs, and drove north toward Ashford Tower. The building rose out of downtown like a blade of glass, 52 floors of polished ambition on Wacker Drive. Men and women crossed the lobby with badges, tailored coats, and coffee cups that cost more than a gallon of milk. Malik stepped through the revolving door carrying Zuri's pink backpack over one shoulder because she had left her science project inside the truck, and he did not trust the paper volcano to survive the cold. The security guard looked up from his desk and paused. His eyes moved from Malik's worn jacket to the child's backpack, then to the folder in his hand. "Deliveries go around back," he said. Malik stopped a respectful distance from the desk. "I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Ashford Capital." The guard gave a tight smile. "Not rude enough to report. Rude enough to remember. Name? Malik Grayson." The guard typed with 2 fingers, frowned, then typed again. "I am not seeing you." Malik nodded once. "Could you check under Meridian Renewal Group?" The guard's expression shifted into impatience. "Sir, this is a private financial building. You cannot just come in here with a company name you found online." A woman passing by glanced over, then looked away quickly, as if embarrassment were contagious. Malik breathed in through his nose. Slow. He thought of Zuri's hand on his sleeve. He thought of Vanessa's voice. He thought of all the doors that had trained him to stand calmly while someone decided whether he belonged. "I understand," he said. "Please call upstairs." The guard leaned back. "And tell them what? That a man with a kid's backpack says he owns a meeting?" Before Malik could answer, a familiar laugh cut across the lobby. Derek Hale stepped out of an elevator in a navy overcoat, his hair perfect, his shoes bright as wet ink. Vanessa was beside him, scrolling through her phone until she saw Malik. She stopped walking. Derek looked from Malik to the backpack and smiled like the morning had handed him a gift. "Well, this is awkward," he said loudly enough for the guard to hear. "Malik, this building does not give shelter." A few heads turned. Vanessa touched Derek's arm, but she did not stop him. Malik held his folder at his side. His voice stayed even. "Good," he said. "I did not come looking for one." The lobby went quiet in that strange corporate way, not silent, just watchful. Derek's smile thinned. Above them, on the 40th floor, Claire Ashford stood in front of a wall of security monitors, reviewing arrival feeds before the acquisition meeting. She had not expected to see the man from the restaurant. She had not expected the old jacket, the steady posture, or the pink backpack hanging from his shoulder like proof of a life larger than business. Her assistant was speaking behind her, something about Derek Hale's revised proposal. Claire did not hear it. She watched Malik stand below, surrounded by marble, glass, and judgment, and somehow make all of it look less solid than him. Then she reached for the phone and called the lobby desk herself. The phone on the lobby desk rang once. The security guard looked down, irritated at first, then straightened so quickly his chair rolled backward. "Yes, Miss Ashford," he said, voice suddenly careful. Malik did not smile. Derek noticed that. Vanessa noticed it too. So did the guard, who listened for 3 seconds, swallowed, and looked up at Malik as if the marble floor beneath him had shifted. "Mr. Grayson," he said, softer now. "You are expected upstairs." Derek's face changed by half an inch. Not enough for most people to catch. Malik caught it. Men like Derek wore confidence like a tailored coat, but the seams always showed when the room stopped agreeing with them. The guard stepped from behind the desk and gestured toward the private elevator. "My apologies, sir." Malik gave a single nod. "Thank you." That was all. No lecture. No complaint. No little revenge taken from a smaller man who had only borrowed someone else's prejudice for the morning. Malik walked toward the elevator with Zuri's pink backpack on his shoulder and the old leather folder at his side. Derek followed close behind with Vanessa, his polished shoes striking the floor harder than before. "So what is this, Malik?" Derek asked under his breath. "Some nonprofit stunt? You found a sponsor?" Malik pressed the elevator button. The silver doors reflected all four of them in a long, cold blur. "It is a meeting," he said. "You should try having one before deciding what it is." Vanessa looked at him then. Really looked. Not like a former husband. Not like a problem she had outgrown. Like a locked door she had just discovered might not open for her anymore. "Why are you here?" she asked. Her voice was quieter than last night. Malik kept his eyes on the doors. "For the same reason everybody comes here. Business." Derek laughed, but it came out thin. "Business. Right. You do realize Ashford Capital handles 9-figure acquisitions, not payment plans." The elevator opened before Malik could answer. Inside, the walls were mirrored and spotless. Vanessa stepped in beside Derek. Malik entered last. No one spoke for 20 floors. Silence has weight in expensive places. It presses against cuff links, perfume, and all the things people wear to prove they are not afraid. On the 40th floor, Claire Ashford was waiting outside the conference room. In daylight, she looked even more composed than she had in the restaurant. Charcoal blazer, hair pulled back, eyes clear from a night of not sleeping enough and thinking too much. She looked first at Malik, then at the backpack, then at the folder in his hand. "Mr. Grayson," she said. "Thank you for coming." Derek's mouth tightened. Vanessa blinked. Malik extended his hand. "Miss Ashford." His grip was firm, brief, respectful. Claire felt the calluses against her palm. Not soft money. Not inherited ease. Work. Years of it. "I apologize for the delay downstairs," she said. "It should not have happened." Malik glanced toward the lobby far below, then back to her. "People make assumptions. Buildings just give them nicer lighting." Claire almost smiled. Almost. Instead, she opened the glass door to the boardroom. "We are ready for you." The room was already full. Lawyers on one side. Analysts on the other. A projection screen lit with maps of old industrial lots across the south side, each one marked in blue and red. Malik recognized the blocks immediately. He knew the streets. The laundromat under his apartment sat 3 miles from one of them. Churches, corner stores, duplexes with tired porches, families that fixed their own pipes because landlords stopped answering years ago. Derek moved to the front of the room like he owned the air. "Before we begin," he said, smiling toward the investors, "I should clarify something. Mr. Grayson is my fiancé's ex-husband. There may be some personal confusion about his presence here." A few faces turned. Vanessa stared at the table. Derek continued, encouraged by his own voice. "Last I heard, he was sleeping in his car." The words landed. Not as loudly as homeless, but close enough to bruise the same place. Malik set Zuri's backpack gently on the empty chair beside him. The little paper volcano inside shifted, its taped cardboard sides pressing against the zipper. For some reason, that tiny sound filled the room more than Derek's insult. Malik looked at the men and women around the table, then at Claire, then at the screen. "Are we discussing my past?" he asked, "or the families your proposal intends to remove from theirs?" No one answered. Claire did not move, but something in her eyes sharpened. Derek's smile disappeared. Malik opened the leather folder, took out a stack of marked documents, and placed them on the table with calm precision. "Because if we are here for business," he said, "then I suggest we start with the numbers you hoped nobody would read." The room did not move at first. People like silence when it protects them. They dislike it when it starts asking questions. Malik Grayson slid the first page across the table, then the second, then the third, each one marked with clean red tabs and quiet patience. "Parcel 12, he said, pointing to the map on the screen. "You listed it as vacant industrial spillover." Derek gave a short laugh. "Because it is." Malik looked at him. "There are 26 families living within 300 yards of that lot." He turned a page. 8 children under the age of 10. 2 retired couples. 1 daycare operating out of a converted storefront on Halstead. An analyst near the far end of the table leaned forward. "That was not in the summary packet." "No," Malik said. "It was not." Claire's gaze moved from the documents to Derek. Nothing in her face softened. "That was worse than anger." Derek adjusted his cuff. "With respect, this is emotional framing. The acquisition concerns underperforming land, not neighborhood sentiment." Malik nodded slowly, as if Derek had confirmed something he already knew. "Then let us remove emotion." He lifted another page. Your projected relocation cost is based on 4 registered tenants. The city records show 31 occupied units connected to the same utility grid. A low murmur passed through the room. Not loud, just enough to change the air. Vanessa sat very still beside Derek, her hands folded over a leather notebook she had not opened. Malik did not look at her. He kept his eyes on the facts. Facts were merciful that way. They did not need revenge to be devastating. Derek's jaw tightened. Those units are informal, not legally relevant. Claire spoke for the first time. People are legally relevant, Mr. Hale. The sentence was quiet. It still reached every corner of the room. Derek turned toward her, smile returning too late. Of course, I only mean the deal structure does not require direct engagement with every informal occupant. Malik's fingers rested on the edge of Zuri's backpack for half a second. The paper volcano inside crinkled softly. That is one way to say you plan to move families before they knew they were standing in the way. The lead attorney, a gray-haired woman named Marlene Price, pulled one of the documents closer. Her glasses slid down her nose as she read. Where did you get these municipal filings? Public records, Malik said. And doorsteps. Derek scoffed. Doorsteps? Yes, Malik said. The place where people are honest because they have not been invited into rooms like this. No one laughed. Not this time. Claire watched him carefully. Last night, he had been a father protecting a child from shame. This morning, he was something else. Still calm. Still restrained. But the restraint had direction now. It moved through the room like a current under ice. Mr. Grayson, Marlene asked, what is your formal position regarding Meridian Renewal Group? Derek leaned back, grateful for the question, already preparing to dismiss whatever answer came next. Malik, open the final section of the leather folder. The papers inside were thicker, stamped, notarized, and already reviewed by counsel. He placed them in front of Claire, not Derek. Majority owner. 2 words. No thunder. No raised voice. But the room changed as if every window had opened in winter. Vanessa looked up. Her mouth parted, but nothing came out. Derek stared at the papers, then at Malik, then back at the papers as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something less humiliating. Claire did not blink. She read the first page, then the second, then the signature block at the bottom. Malik Elijah Grayson, founder and majority shareholder. Meridian Renewal Group. Valuation attached. Capital reserves attached. Acquisition authority attached. The numbers were not loud either. They did not need to be. They sat there with the clean brutality of truth. $1.2 billion in assets under management. 3 renewable infrastructure projects across Illinois and Indiana. 2 housing preservation trusts funded anonymously over the last 18 months. Claire looked up at him, and for the first time since they had met, she seemed genuinely without a prepared response. You are Meridian, she said. Malik did not correct her. He did not smile. He did not look at Vanessa to see if the word had hurt. I represent Meridian, he said. And Meridian is prepared to purchase the same land package, but not under the terms Mr. Hale proposed. Derek stood too quickly. His chair made a sharp sound against the floor. This is absurd. There is no way he built that. Malik turned to him then, not with anger, with something far worse for Derek. Pity without softness. You keep saying that like disbelief is evidence. Derek's face flushed. Vanessa whispered his name, but he ignored her. You hid this during your divorce. The room went colder. Malik's eyes flicked to Vanessa for the first time. She looked away. We can discuss timelines, Malik said, voice steady. Or we can discuss the families your model erased. Claire closed the folder gently. That small sound ended the argument more completely than a gavel. We will discuss both, she said. But first, Mr. Hale, you will sit down. Derek did. Slowly, because money had entered the room at last. But dignity had been standing there the whole time. Claire Ashford did not raise her voice. She did not have to. The room had already learned where the power had shifted. Derek Hale sat back down with a stiffness that made his expensive suit look borrowed, while Marlene Price turned another page from Malik's folder and studied the attached exhibits in silence. Vanessa kept her eyes on the table. That was new. She had always known how to look directly at Malik when she wanted to wound him. Now she looked at the polished wood as if it might open and hide her. Claire walked to the screen and tapped the remote once. Derek's projection disappeared. In its place, Marlene's assistant pulled up Malik's marked map, full of notes, utility lines, school zones, church routes, and handwritten names that did not belong in a normal acquisition file. Mrs. Alvarez, Unit 3B, night shift nurse, 2 grandchildren, Pastor Bell, corner pantry, Friday meals. The room stared at the names. Numbers were easier. Names made removal feel like a knock on someone's door. Mr. Grayson, Claire said, her voice measured. Explain your counter-proposal. Malik stood slowly. He did not move to the head of the table. He stayed where he was, beside Zuri's backpack, one hand resting near the paper volcano like a reminder that the future was not an abstract thing. Meridian will match the purchase price, he said. But the redevelopment timeline changes. No displacement without signed relocation support. No demolition until replacement housing is secured within 5 miles. Local hiring required. Childcare space built into the first phase. And 10% of net returns go into a permanent neighborhood trust. One of the analysts blinked. That reduces first-year profit significantly. Yes, Malik said. It also reduces the number of children eating breakfast in cars while adults argue over margins. The analyst looked down. Claire did not. She was still watching Malik. Not the valuation. Not the surprise. Him. The steadiness of his voice. The refusal to dress compassion up as weakness. Derek leaned forward again, trying to gather what was left of himself. This is not philanthropy hour. Investors expect discipline. Malik turned a page. Discipline is why I read the filings you missed. A quiet breath moved around the room. Someone almost laughed, then wisely decided not to. Derek's face tightened, but Claire spoke before he could. Your proposal misrepresented exposure, she said. That is not discipline. That is convenience. Derek looked at Vanessa as if she might defend him. She did not. Her hands were clasped too tightly now, the diamond on her finger pressing into her skin. Marlene placed another document on the table. There is also the matter of prior disclosure. Derek frowned. What matter? Marlene slid the document toward Claire first, then toward Malik. Mr. Hale raised the issue of hidden assets related to Mr. Grayson's divorce. We pulled the public record during recess. There had been no recess. Only 3 minutes of legal silence, which in a room like that was enough to change a life. Vanessa's face drained. Malik closed his eyes briefly. Not from fear. From fatigue. Some wounds did not reopen because they were deep. They reopened because people kept stepping on the same place. Marlene continued. The divorce agreement shows Miss Whitmore declined shared liabilities, declined future business interest claims, and signed a separate custody cost waiver at the time, citing Mr. Grayson's insolvency. Derek stared at Vanessa. You waived it? Vanessa whispered. I thought there was nothing. That sentence floated there, small and ugly. Malik looked at her then, and for 1 second the boardroom vanished. He saw their old kitchen, the unopened bills, Zuri asleep in a laundry basket lined with blankets because the crib had been sold, Vanessa standing by the door with her suitcase, telling him she could not drown with him. He remembered wanting to hate her. He remembered failing because Zuri still needed a mother more than he needed an enemy. Claire saw the memory cross his face and disappear before anyone else could use it. Derek pushed back. So she made a decision based on fraud. Malik's voice came low. No, she made a decision. Based on what she believed I was worth. The room went completely still. Vanessa's eyes filled, but Malik did not let the silence become punishment. He turned to Claire. Do not use that document to embarrass her. Claire's eyebrows lifted slightly. She allowed him to embarrass you. She is still Zuri's mother, Malik said. My daughter has to grow up with the truth, not a public execution of it. That was the moment Claire Ashford lost the last of her old certainty. She had watched billionaires beg for reputation, executives ruin assistants over mistakes, heirs treat apologies like invoices. But this man, who had every right to make the room bleed with the truth, chose restraint because a child might one day hear the echo. Claire closed the file. Mr. Hale, Ashford Capital is withdrawing from your proposal. Derek stared at her. You cannot be serious. I am rarely anything else. She turned to Malik. Mr. Grayson, I would like to discuss Meridian's proposal privately. Malik nodded once. Vanessa looked up then, finally finding his eyes. There was apology in her face, or fear, or both. Malik did not answer either one. He picked up Zuri's backpack, held the old folder against his side, and followed Claire toward the glass office overlooking the city. Behind him, the room remained full of money, shame, and unfinished sentences. Ahead of him, the skyline waited in a wash of pale winter light. For the first time that morning, Claire understood that Malik Grayson had not come to prove he was rich. He had come to prove that power could still kneel low enough to protect people without making them feel small. Claire's private office was quieter than the boardroom, but not softer. The walls were glass from floor to ceiling, giving the city nowhere to hide. Chicago stretched beneath them in winter colors, gray streets, dark river, white breath rising from rooftops. Malik stood near the window with Zuri's pink backpack hanging from one shoulder, looking less like a man impressed by height and more like one measuring how far people could fall from rooms built above everyone else. Claire closed the door behind them. The click was gentle, final. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She walked to her desk, picked up her phone, and turned it face down. That small act surprised him more than anything she had said in the meeting. People with power rarely gave silence their full attention. Claire did. How long did it take you? She asked. Malik looked over. To build Meridian? To survive being underestimated without letting it turn you cruel. The question stayed in the air longer than she expected. Malik set the backpack carefully on a leather chair, making sure the paper volcano inside did not bend. Then he looked out at the traffic moving along Wacker Drive like silver thread pulled through concrete. I had a little girl watching, he said. I could not afford to become bitter. Claire absorbed that quietly. She had heard men explain ambition in many languages. Legacy, market timing, discipline, revenge. She had never heard someone explain mercy as a parenting strategy. Most people would have used that room differently, she said. After what they said. Malik gave a faint smile without amusement. Most people are tired. You were not. I was exhausted. He turned from the window. That is why I had to be careful. Exhaustion makes revenge feel like justice if you hold it too long. Claire sat slowly on the edge of her desk. Not behind it. That mattered. Malik noticed. Her office held no family photographs, no soft things, no evidence that anyone had ever waited there for her after 6 o'clock. Only awards, market reports, framed magazine covers, and a single crystal bowl filled with untouched peppermints. Success had a strange way of decorating loneliness. My father would have liked you, she said, then almost seemed surprised that she had said it. Malik waited. He was good at that, waiting without reaching. Claire looked toward the skyline. He built half of what people think belongs to me. By the time I inherited it, I knew how to read a balance sheet, but I did not know how to sit at a dinner table without checking for weakness. Her mouth tightened. He admired strength. Unfortunately, he taught me to confuse it with distance. Malik did not offer a lesson. He did not soften his voice into pity. He simply said, distance can keep you safe. It cannot keep you warm. Claire looked at him then, and something behind her composure shifted. Not breaking, adjusting. Before she could answer, a knock came at the glass door. Her assistant opened it a few inches. Miss Ashford, I am sorry. There is a little girl at reception asking for Mr. Grayson. School says she was signed out by the emergency contact after a sprinkler issue. The driver brought her here. Malik reached for the backpack before the assistant finished speaking. Zuri. Claire stood. Bring her in. 2 minutes later, Zuri stepped into the office wearing her blue coat, her braids slightly loosened from the school day, one hand gripping her essay certificate in a plastic sleeve. She stopped when she saw the glass walls and the city below. Whoa, she whispered. Then she saw Malik and hurried to him, trying very hard not to look scared in front of strangers. Malik crouched at once. Hey, baby. You all right? The alarm was loud, she said. But Miss Janet said it was just water. He checked her face, her hands, the way fathers do when fear arrives before facts. You did good. Zuri leaned into him, then looked past his shoulder at Claire. Recognition flickered. The woman from the restaurant. The woman who had watched and said nothing. Zuri's voice was polite, but guarded. Are you one of the people who laughed at my dad? The office went very still. Claire could have defended herself. She could have explained status, timing, discomfort, the rules of public silence. Instead, she walked closer and lowered herself until her eyes were level with Zuri's. Her suit creased at the knees. She did not seem to care. No, Claire said. But I was one of the people who stayed quiet when I should have made the room kinder. Zuri studied her for a long second. Children have a way of hearing what adults hide under grammar. Do you think my dad is poor? Claire glanced at Malik, then back at the child. I think your dad is one of the richest men I have ever met. Not because of money. Zuri looked confused, but less afraid. Malik's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Claire stood, slower this time. She had signed billion-dollar documents without trembling. Yet one little girl's question had reached a place no shareholder ever had. Malik looked at her, and for the first time that day, his eyes carried something close to gratitude. Not for praise, for honesty. Outside the glass, the city kept moving, unaware that inside one quiet office, a powerful woman had just learned that dignity was not something a man wore. It was something his child could stand behind. Zuri stayed close to Malik as they stepped back into the hallway, her small hand wrapped around two of his fingers. Claire walked beside them, not ahead of them. That detail did not escape Malik. In buildings like Ashford Tower, people were always arranged by importance. Assistants followed. Lawyers waited. Investors were escorted. But for those few quiet steps, Claire matched the pace of an 8-year-old girl carrying an essay certificate and a paper volcano. Near the boardroom, voices leaked through the glass. Derek's voice first. Low, strained, angry enough to lose its polish. Vanessa's came next, thinner than before. You made me look like a fool, Derek said. I did not know, Vanessa whispered. That is the problem. You never know until it costs you. Malik stopped before they reached the door. He did not want Zuri hearing that. But children hear through walls adults pretend are thick. Zuri looked up at him. Is Mom in there? Malik's face softened. Yes. Is she crying? He paused. There were answers that protected a child and answers that taught one. The hard part was knowing which kind love required. I think she is having a difficult moment, he said. Zuri looked at the floor. Because of what she said, Malik crouched in the hallway, the glass office lights reflecting across his shoulders. Because words come back, he said. Sometimes later, sometimes louder. Zuri nodded as if filing the sentence away for some older version of herself. Before Malik could stand, the boardroom door opened. Vanessa stepped out alone. Her cream coat was still perfect, her makeup still careful, but something underneath had collapsed. She saw Zuri first. That hurt her. Then she saw Malik kneeling beside their daughter, and that hurt worse. Zuri, Vanessa said softly. Zuri moved half a step behind Malik. The movement was small. Vanessa felt it like a verdict. Malik rose slowly, keeping his hand open so Zuri could choose whether to hold it. She did. Vanessa swallowed. Can I speak to you? Malik glanced down at Zuri. Miss Ashford, could you stay with her for a minute? Claire looked at Zuri, then at him. Of course. Zuri hesitated, then allowed Claire to guide her a few feet away toward a bench beneath a large abstract painting. Claire did not ask questions. She simply sat beside her, leaving enough space for the child to feel free. Malik and Vanessa moved toward the window at the end of the hall. Outside, the river curved through the city like a dark ribbon. For a moment, Vanessa said nothing. Without Derek beside her, her confidence seemed to have nowhere to stand. I did not know about Meridian, she said. Malik looked at the view. I know. You could have told me. You stopped asking how I was doing years ago. She flinched. Not dramatically. Just enough. I thought you were failing. I was. He turned to her. For a while. Vanessa's eyes shone. Then how did you become this? Malik thought of cold apartments, rejected loans, midnight spreadsheets, Zuri asleep beside him while he learned infrastructure finance from free library databases. He thought of every person who had mistaken quiet for emptiness. Slowly, he said, and with help from people who did not need me to look successful before they believed I had value. Vanessa hugged her arms around herself. Derek says I should challenge the divorce agreement. Malik's expression did not change, but the air around him did. Is that what you want? She looked toward Zuri on the bench. Claire had handed her a peppermint from the crystal bowl, and Zuri was turning it in her fingers like a tiny treasure. Vanessa's voice broke down to something almost honest. I do not know what I want. Last night, when I saw you, I wanted to feel like I had chosen right. So I said something cruel. Malik waited. Vanessa wiped beneath one eye carefully. I am sorry. The apology came late. It came small. It came without an audience. That made it closer to real. Malik accepted it with a nod, not an embrace. Some bridges did not need to be burned. Some simply needed a weight limit. Do not apologize to me first, he said. Apologize to your daughter. And do not ask her to make you feel better after you do. Vanessa looked down. That instruction hurt because it was fair. Do you hate me? She asked. Malik looked at her for a long time. He could have said yes and been understood. He could have said no and been admired. Instead, he told the truth. I outgrew needing to. Vanessa cried then, quietly, turning toward the window so Zuri would not see too much. Malik did not comfort her. He did not punish her either. He just stood there, present enough to be humane, distant enough to be free. Across the hall, Claire watched without pretending not to. She saw a man who had been humiliated twice in 24 hours, handed the power to destroy those who hurt him, and chosen instead to protect a child from inheriting adult bitterness. Zuri looked up at Claire. Is my daddy mad? Claire watched Malik's still shoulders by the window. Maybe, she said softly. But your daddy knows how to hold anger without handing it to someone else. Zuri thought about that. Then she placed the peppermint in her coat pocket and whispered, That sounds heavy. Claire's eyes softened. It is. At the window, Malik turned back toward his daughter. Vanessa followed his gaze, finally seeing what he had been protecting all along. Not money, not pride, not the story people told about him. A little girl in a blue coat, learning from every adult in the hallway what love did when it was wounded. Vanessa crossed the hallway slowly, as if every step toward Zuri required a part of her pride to be left behind. Malik did not guide her. He did not block her. He simply stood near enough for Zuri to feel safe and far enough for the apology to belong to the person who owed it. Vanessa stopped in front of her daughter. For once, she did not bend the moment into something pretty. Zuri, she said, voice thin but steady. I said something cruel about your father last night. I was wrong. I was embarrassed by my own choices, and I tried to make him look small so I would not have to feel small. Zuri held Malik's hand tighter. Vanessa looked at that hand, then back at her daughter's face. You do not have to make me feel better. I just need you to know your father did not deserve that. Neither did you. Zuri looked up at Malik. He gave no signal except a quiet nod that said she was free to feel whatever came. That was the gift he had always tried to give her. Not perfect days. Honest ones. Zuri turned back to Vanessa. You hurt his feelings, she said. Vanessa's mouth trembled. I know. And mine. I know that too. The hallway went still. Not because everyone was watching. Most people had returned to their screens, their meetings, their practiced importance. But for the 4 people standing there, time had narrowed to the size of a child's voice. Zuri slipped her essay certificate under one arm and said, I forgive you a little today. Maybe more later. Vanessa covered her mouth with one hand, but did not reach for her. She had heard Malik's instruction. Do not ask the child to heal the adult. Claire stood beside the bench, witnessing the kind of negotiation no law degree could draft. It was not dramatic. It was not clean. It was human. Later that afternoon, after Vanessa left alone and Derek's proposal was formally withdrawn, Claire invited Malik back into her office. Zuri sat on the couch with her paper volcano balanced on her knees, adding a tiny label that read, Mount Hope. Malik saw it and smiled before sitting across from Claire. Outside, the city had softened into late winter gold, the kind of light that made glass towers look less certain of themselves. Claire placed a new folder on the table. Ashford Capital wants to partner with Meridian Renewal Group, she said. Not on Derek's terms. On yours. Malik opened the folder, but did not rush through it. What changed? Claire looked toward Zuri, then back at him. I did. The honesty was simple. That made it harder to dismiss. I have spent years thinking power meant getting to the top floor, she continued. Today I watched you use it to make sure people on the ground were not stepped on. Malik studied her, looking for performance and finding very little. The trust comes first, he said. Housing protection, local hiring, childcare, clear language in every contract. No family should need a lawyer to understand whether they are about to lose a home. Claire nodded. Agreed. And my name does not go on the fund. That made her pause. Why not? Malik glanced at Zuri, who was now coloring smoke clouds above the paper volcano with a blue marker. Because kindness gets smaller when people turn it into a monument. Claire sat back, quiet. She had built her life around names on doors, names on buildings, names printed beneath headlines. Yet here was a man who had more than enough money to be remembered and still cared more about what would remain when no one was clapping. By sunset, the first agreement was signed. Not the final contract. Not the end of the work. Just the first honest page. Malik and Zuri rode the elevator down with Claire beside them. In the lobby, the same security guard stood when he saw Malik. This time, he did not guess. "Good evening, Mr. Grayson," he said. Malik nodded. "Good evening." Outside, the air was cold again, but Zuri skipped once on the sidewalk, her paper volcano tucked safely in her backpack. "Daddy," she asked, "are we rich now?" Malik crouched to zip her coat all the way to the top. "No, baby," he said. "We are responsible now." Claire heard it from the building entrance, and the words followed her deeper than any deal she had ever signed. Malik Grayson had not become wealthy to prove Vanessa wrong. He had become strong enough to make sure his daughter never believed cruelty was the price of being seen. He did not raise his voice. He raised her faith in people. And maybe that was the quietest kind of revolution. If Malik's story made you think of someone who stayed kind when life gave them every reason not to, share that feeling in the comments. Because sometimes one honest reflection can remind another person that dignity still matters. Thank you for watching until the end of this video.